Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you for a moment because this right here, this is one of the most misunderstood experiences in relationships. See, everybody thinks if two people aren't talking, if there ain't no text, no call, no good morning, then nothing is happening. But that's a lie. Sometimes the strongest connections are the quiet ones, ladies and gentlemen. Let me slow this thing down for a minute because this first point right here, this is where most people get it twisted. Silence does not mean the connection is gone. In fact, sometimes silence is the loudest proof that something real still exists. See, when two people truly matter to each other, noise ain't required. Constant talking ain't required. And chasing, that definitely ain't required. Let me explain it to you like this. When a connection is shallow, it needs constant attention just to survive. It needs reassurance every day. It needs check-ins, reminders, validation. But when the bond is deep, when it's rooted in something emotional, something spiritual, silence doesn't kill it. Silence feeds it. Because now the mind takes over, and the mind is powerful. You ever been quiet with somebody not talking for days, weeks, sometimes even longer, but they're still on your mind every single day? You wake up thinking about them. You go to sleep wondering how they're doing. You hear a song, see a place, smell something familiar, and boom, there they are again in your thoughts. That's not absence. That's presence without permission. When two people can't stop thinking about each other, silence becomes a mirror. It forces you to sit with your feelings. There's no distraction, no messages to hide behind, no small talk to dilute the truth. Just you, your thoughts, and that person living rent-free in your head. And the funny thing is, they're probably doing the same thing on their side, whether they admit it or not. See, a man in silence doesn't forget. A man reflects. He replays moments. He rethinks decisions. He starts asking himself questions he didn't ask when everything was loud. He wonders if he should have handled things differently. He wonders why her energy still lingers. And the more he tries to distract himself, the more she shows up in his mind. And a woman, in silence, she feels deeper. She starts recognizing patterns. She notices how he still affects her mood without saying a word. She feels the connection in her spirit, not her phone. And that's when she realizes it wasn't just attraction, it was attachment, emotional attachment, the kind you don't just switch off. Here's what people don't tell you. Silence removes the ego. When there's no communication, there's no performing, no pretending, no trying to impress, just truth. And truth has a way of revealing how important someone really is to you. If they still matter when nobody's watching, when nobody's talking, when nobody's reaching out, that's real. Now don't get it confused. Silence ain't the same as avoidance. Silence ain't the same as playing games. Silence, when it's genuine, is simply space. And space gives clarity. It makes you realize whether you miss the attention or the person, whether you miss the comfort or the connection. And when two people can't stop thinking about each other in that space, it tells you everything. You need to know life keeps moving, but your mind keeps circling back. You could be busy, surrounded by people, smiling, laughing, but there's still that quiet moment where your thoughts drift right back to them. That's not weakness, that's emotional truth. And emotional truth don't care about pride. Let me say this clearly. If silence made the connection stronger instead of weaker, that bond was already solid. Because what's fake needs constant noise to survive. What's real survives in stillness. And sometimes silence is where love grows up. It matures. It sheds the excitement and reveals the depth. You stop focusing on how often they text, and you start focusing on how deeply they affect you. That's a whole different level. So if you're in a season where you're not talking, but you're still thinking, still feeling, still connected, don't rush to label it as over. Silence might just be showing you how real it actually was. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something most people don't understand, because this right here operates on a level deeper than words. Energy don't need language. Energy don't need Wi-Fi. Energy don't need a text message to travel. When two people are truly connected, what's felt goes way beyond what's said. See, words are optional. When energy is real, you can stop talking, block numbers, unfollow pages, and still feel somebody sitting heavy on your spirit. That's because energy moves independent of effort. You don't have to invite it. You don't have to explain it. It just shows up. You ever been minding your own business, having a normal day, and suddenly your mood shifts? Ain't nothing happened. Nobody said nothing. But all of a sudden, you thinking about that one person. Your chest feel tight. Your thoughts slow down. That's not random. That's emotional energy tapping in when two people can't stop thinking about each other. Their energy stays connected even in separation. One person feels restless, the other feels uneasy. One feels the urge to reach out. The other checks their phone for no reason. That's not coincidence, that's alignment. And alignment happens when two people are on the same emotional frequency. A man feels this in ways he doesn't always know how to explain. He might not say he misses her, but his energy betrays him. He gets distracted. He zones out. He compares every interaction to the one he had with her. And even when he's laughing with friends, there's a quiet pull tugging at him, reminding him of what he felt. And a woman, she feels it in her body, in her intuition. She senses when his energy shifts. She feels when he's thinking about her. She knows when something is unresolved. And she don't need proof, she just knows. That's because women are tuned into emotional energy differently. They don't need words to validate what they already feel. Energy also explains why timing gets strange, why you both think about each other at the same moment, why you both dream about each other around the same time, why you both suddenly feel the need to pull back or pull closer without discussing it. Energy moves first, words come later. And here's the truth most people ignore. When the connection is strong, distance doesn't weaken it. Distance tests it. Because when there's no communication, energy has nothing to hide behind. No flirting, no reassurance, no check-ins. Just raw emotion. And if that emotion keeps finding its way back, that bond is real, you might try to distract yourself. Stay busy. Keep your calendar full. Meet new people. But the energy don't care about distractions. It slips through the cracks. It shows up in quiet moments, late nights, early mornings. That's when you know it's not just attraction, it's attachment. Energy also shows up in behavior. You both change without realizing it. You both slow down. You both reflect. You both grow. And sometimes you both get quiet at the same time. That's not distance. That's synchronization. That's two people processing the same emotion separately, but together. Now let me say this, because this part matters. Not every connection deserves your energy, but when you can't stop thinking about each other, it's because energy was exchanged deeply. Something meaningful passed between you, something honest. And once energy is exchanged at that level, it doesn't just disappear. It lingers until it's resolved or understood. That's why unfinished business feels heavy. That's why unspoken feelings echo louder than conversations that already happened. Energy wants clarity. It wants truth. And until that truth is faced, it keeps reminding both people of its presence. You don't have to chase energy. You don't have to force it. If it's real, it will meet you where you are. It will follow you into silence. It will sit with you in stillness. And it will speak even when nobody says a word. Because when two people are connected on an energetic level, communication becomes secondary. The bond exists beyond language, beyond pride, beyond distance. And that's when you realize some connections don't need words to survive. They're already talking through energy. Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you about something subtle, because this third point shows up quietly. But when you recognize it, you can't unsee it. When two people can't stop thinking about each other, their lives start lining up in ways that don't look planned but feel intentional. Things just start happening. Moments start overlapping. Timing gets strange. And you sit back and say, now, how did that happen? See, when a connection is real, it don't stay locked inside the heart. It leaks into behavior, into movement, into decisions you didn't even realize you were making. You find yourself going places you don't normally go, watching things you don't usually watch, thinking thoughts that don't normally cross your mind. And somehow, those shifts start pointing you right back toward the same person. You might run into them unexpectedly, not once, but multiple times, different places, different days. No planning, no coordination. And every time it happens, it shakes you a little because deep down you know that wasn't random. When two people are thinking about each other, their awareness sharpens, their attention opens, and the universe has a way of responding to that. You also notice how conversations with other people start circling back to them. Somebody brings up a topic, and somehow it reminds you of that person. Somebody says a name, plays a song, tells a story, and there they are again. That's alignment. Your mind is tuned in. You're operating on a frequency that keeps pulling the same signal. A man experiences this alignment in his action. He starts moving differently without realizing why. He hesitates before making certain choices. He rethinks decisions that would take him further away. He might say he's focused on himself, but something keeps nudging him to slow down. That's not fear, that's awareness. His mind knows there's something unfinished. And a woman experiences it through patterns. She notices how things keep repeating, how signs keep showing up, how her intuition keeps tapping her shoulder, saying, pay attention. She might try to brush it off, but it keeps coming back. That's alignment speaking louder than logic. Timing is the biggest giveaway. When two people can't stop thinking about each other, their timing starts syncing up. You both pull back at the same time. You both feel ready at the same time. You both start healing at the same time. And sometimes you both feel the urge to reconnect at the same time. That's not chance, that's emotional rhythm. Even growth starts to match. You both start learning the same lesson separately. You both start understanding what went wrong without having to discuss it. You both mature in ways that would actually allow the connection to work if it came back around. Alignment isn't about coincidence, it's about preparation. Here's the part most people ignore. Alignment doesn't mean you're supposed to force anything. It doesn't mean you run back immediately. It just means something real existed and life is still acknowledging it. When something wasn't meaningful, it fades clean. No signs, no echoes, no repetition. But when it mattered, it came. EPS showing up in subtle ways. You might try to move on and life says not yet. You might try to forget and something reminds you, a memory, a feeling, a moment that feels too familiar. That's alignment asking you to reflect, not react. And sometimes alignment is about delay, not reunion. It's about timing you can't control. It's about growth that has to happen first, because two people can think about each other deeply and still not be ready. Alignment doesn't rush. It waits until both sides can handle what they're asking for. So when your life keeps lining up in strange ways around one person, when moments, thoughts, and timing keep pointing in the same direction, don't dismiss it. Pay attention. Not everything that repeats is accidental. Some things repeat because they matter. Because when two people can't stop thinking about each other, the world around them starts whispering the same name. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you about the part nobody likes to talk about, because this fourth point gets real personal. When two people can't stop thinking about each other, it's usually because something is unfinished. Something was left hanging in the air. Something that never got closure. And unfinished emotions don't disappear, they wait. See, closure ain't always a conversation. Sometimes closure is understanding. Sometimes it's growth. And sometimes it's realizing why that person came into your life in the first place. But until that lesson is learned, the mind keeps returning to the same place, asking the same questions. You replay moments in your head, not because you're stuck, but because your spirit is still processing. You wonder what went wrong, what could have been different, what was real and what wasn't. And the crazy part is, they're doing the same thing on their side. Two people thinking about each other isn't always about missing it. It's about meaning. A man carries unfinished business quietly. He doesn't always talk it out, but he feels it. He thinks about the conversations he avoided, the emotions he didn't express, the timing he didn't respect. And when he's alone, when the noise fades, that's when the truth gets loud. He realizes there were things he felt but never said. A woman carries unfinished emotions deeply. She doesn't just remember what happened, she remembers how it felt. She remembers the shift, the moment things changed, the moment something was left unresolved. And until her heart understands that moment, it keeps revisiting it, searching for clarity. This is why people think they've moved on, but the thoughts still return. You can change environments, meet new people, start new routines. But unfinished emotional business doesn't care about your schedule. It shows up when you're quiet, when you're honest with yourself, when there's no distraction to hide behind. Unspoken feelings are powerful. They don't get closure through silence alone. They need acknowledgement, even if that acknowledgement only happens within yourself. Sometimes you're not thinking about the person, you're thinking about. See the version of yourself you were with them, the hope you had, the future you imagined, and until you reconcile that, the thoughts linger. And here's something important. Unfinished doesn't always mean you're meant to go back. Sometimes it means you're meant to understand, to forgive, to release, to grow. But the mind won't let go until the lesson is clear. That's why two people can think about each other long after the relationship ends. The connection was part of their development. When two people can't stop thinking about each other, it's often because something real was exchanged. Vulnerability, trust, dreams. And once those things are shared, they leave an imprint. You don't erase imprints, you learn from them. That's why time alone doesn't heal everything. Awareness does. Growth does. Acceptance does. When you finally understand what that connection taught you, the thoughts soften. They don't vanish, but they lose their grip. They stop controlling you. Until then, the mind keeps returning, not to torture you, but to teach you, to remind you there's something to learn, something to face, something to finish. So if you find yourself thinking about someone long after the chapter ended, don't judge yourself. Don't rush the process. Some connections are meant to last forever, but they are meant to leave a mark. And that mark stays until its purpose is fulfilled.